Hello and welcome to Gettable, afl.com.au's home of trade, draft, free agency and contract news. We are here thanks to Google. It's great to have our friends at Google back on board for season 2025. I'm Riley Beveridge. We've got a massive show coming up. We're about to speak to Ben Williams from Players Inc. Sports Management, one of the biggest player agents in the game. He looks after the contracts of Nazaya, Wanganeen-Milera, Cal Archie, Dane Rampy, plenty to get through with him. But we're going to get to Cal Twomey, who is standing over here, because Cal, the Bombers were a massive story this week, not only for Nick Bryan's ACL injury, but also for the news that Sam Draper qualifies as an unrestricted free agent.
Yeah, Riley, that's right. And they are our cover story for this week. There it is, holding the card, Sam Draper, how he's facing his free agency decision. The 8-point rebuild plan to fix the Eagles, that's coming up as well. Has Brisbane already found its Joe Daniher replacement? And pick shake-up, why a change is needed to save the draft. But let's get to Draper and the Bombers, because they are our cover story. And it is the Don's dilemma now. Now, what do they do with these two out-of-contract ruckmen who are in a very unique position? Nick Bryan's out for this season with his ACL injury over the weekend, the season injury ending knee injury over the game against Melbourne. And then there's the Sam Draper situation of being a shock unrestricted free agent. I saw a UFA and nobody believed it because he was not going to be that. No one expected him to be an unrestricted free agent. And for me now, it really opens up the floor for clubs to come and get him and to pay a little bit more to do that as well. Adelaide has been circling Draper for the best part of a year, knowing that this was coming. And the compensation conundrum now for the Bombers is what that would take for him to be pulled out of the footy club. So I think what's happened over the past few days has made Draper's position very leveraged at Essendon. They want to keep him. He's been keen to stay in Melbourne as well. But there's still, I think, the idea was to play a bit of footy with these two as a ruck partnership. That now won't happen, so that's still an unknown about how they can play together.
And the other aspect of that, which I think you need to factor in, is a couple of weeks ago you made the very good point that potentially it might work in Essendon's favour to let Sam Draper go, get a first-round pick in for him, though. If that's the case, there's every chance in 12 months' time you go into round one, Nick Bryan's still not fit. And you don't want to go into the season with a 37-year-old Todd Goldstein, who hasn't played at all in the first 6 weeks of this season, as your number one, and maybe you're even your only available ruckman going into round one next year.
I actually thought Sam Draper played the best game of his career on the weekend as well. I thought he kept it really simple and clunked his marks, and it was a good timing for him to do that. Adelaide has been keen on him. I wonder if the unrestricted banding, though, would see other clubs come from the clouds to have a crack at him, like they did for Harry Perryman last year. Collingwood came late to pay that high amount to get him to be an unrestricted free agent, and also then what that would mean for what the Bombers do and if they accept a pick in the draft to do that. Who needs a ruck? Well, Adelaide clearly are chasing. Melbourne clearly needs someone to come for within Max Gawn's career. St Kilda is chasing Tom De Koning. West Coast is clearly in need of a ruck. And Carlton, if they lose Tom De Koning, well, they're going to be in the market too. So I wonder if Adelaide, if they would also jump around. If Sam Draper re-signs at Essendon, would you then look at Nick Bryan and see what happens? The other quirk in this is that they're both managed by the same company, TGI Sport. So they both would have a reasonable idea of what the other one is planning to do. So a very interesting situation at the Bombers and a bit of a dilemma after that shock earlier this week. It's a bit of a game changer, I think. And no, it won't impact their compensation if he does leave. I think they're more of a chance to get a better pick for him.
Because the offers will get bigger.
I agree.
Yeah, and Collingwood you could almost add to that list as well, potentially depending on what happens with Darcy Cameron in the next 12 months as well. All right, Cal, love your work up there. Come back to the desk. As you come back to the desk, let's get to one of our favourite segments here on Gettable. It is right here, right now.
Right here, right now.
You go. Bang, there we go. All right, I want to start with right here, right now, and right here for the next couple of weeks, I reckon, Cal. We won't be hearing much of Oscar Allen's name. It's been a big start to the season for Oscar Allen. We know about his contract status, his free agency status at the end of the year. We know the clubs that are coming for him. I think Oscar Allen now is just going to park those discussions around his future for the next few weeks and just focus entirely on his football. The Eagles are 0-5. He hasn't had the best start to the year either. I think he just wants to entirely focus on his football for the next 4 to 6 weeks, try and get things back on track from that perspective. The clubs that are coming for him, they're still going to be coming for him. Collingwood's in the mix, Hawthorn's in the mix, Brisbane is in the mix, as you reported, pre-Christmas. So they're all the clubs that are going to be coming for Oscar Allen. We know that. West Coast still wants to keep him as well. So those 4 clubs still in the mix for Oscar Allen. But I think he's just going to focus on his football for the next little bit.
Speaking of Brisbane, right here, right now, Brisbane might already have found its Joe Daniher replacement, and he goes by the name of Logan Morris. He is a young gun on the rise. He's kicked 11 goals from 5 games this season. He booted 4 last week against the Western Bulldogs. He's out of contract. It's probably the most under-the-radar contract in footy right now. But he's out of contract and hasn't been in a rush to get to those discussions. His contract next year is a fixed amount. in money terms because, like every 2023 draftee, that is the way that the CBA has it. But think about what this guy's going to be worth in years 4 and 5 and the money that gets thrown around for key position players around the competition and key forwards in particular. If I'm a Victorian club, I'm offering a lot of money for Logan Morris and seeing what shakes out because he is going really, really good and as one of the best picks in the last few years in terms of the draft. Premiership player already, 19 key forward, and maybe Brisbane doesn't need another key forward.
Might be a 2-time premiership player by the end of the year, and whether or not that changes his thinking on his future as well is one to be seen. Right here, right now, it's going to be a big month for Nick Newman. So both from a fitness perspective and from a contract perspective, we know about the ruptured patella, which is going to keep him sidelined for much of the season. Unlike Reef McGuinness and Nick Bryan when they went down with their season-ending injuries, they weren't. Nick Newman wasn't already in discussions with the Blues around an extension for 2026 and beyond when he ruptured his patella. He's got significant strength markers that he must pass in the next month to determine whether or not he plays football again this year, and it'll also determine whether or not the Blues will know if they can open up another list spot ahead of the mid-season draft. The Blues are expecting to know about Nick Newman's status by May 28 when that mid-season draft rolls around. It'll also be key in his contract talks. I think he gets a new deal for 2026.
What about Brodie Kemp went down with the season-ending Achilles injury?
Yeah, again, like Nick Newman, wasn't in talks with the Blues on an extension. I mean, the last 4 weeks of last season and the first 4 weeks of this season would suggest that Brodie Kemp's done enough to earn a new deal there, but we obviously know that he flirted with a move out of Carlton last year when St Kilda came coming for him on deadline day, couldn't get that deal done. I think he gets a new deal if he's willing to stay.
All right here, right now, there's an under-the-radar cat who is garnering interest around the competition. His name is Tom Atkins. He's doing some fantastic things for the Cats midfield. He got 10 coaches' votes last week in what was probably the game of the season against the Crows. He's also out of contract, and other clubs are keeping close tabs on this one. Every gun midfield team needs a glue guy, needs their selfless player who lets the big dogs do their thing. James Rowbottom is doing it at Sydney. William Drew does it at Port Adelaide. Well, Tom Atkins is doing it at Geelong and helping Bailey Smith and Max Holmes do their thing in the midfield and also helping Patrick Dangerfield shift forward because he's been terrific. Talks are ongoing, but Geelong certainly would want to lock him away soon as other clubs circle.
They certainly would. All right. One we haven't done for a while, but we want to bring it back.
Yes, kaleidoscope. Here it is, seeing things through a different lens. Where is it? Here's my kaleidoscope. Bang. All right. As you know, as everyone knows, I love the draft.
No.
But I'm worried about it. It's a mess. The system needs a bit of a fix because we're entering the most compromised draft pool in history. Every time a hot prospect jumps up this year, they're tied to a club. And I think the way that it's tracking, we're going to see more and more of that going forward, given the strength of the Northern Club academies and also the enhancement of the NGAs around the competition as well. So this is my big idea. The bottom 4 clubs in the draft every year should get an extra first round pick in the middle of the first round. It's too hard to rebuild otherwise. We've seen so many clubs for so long be wasted at the bottom of the ladder and struggle to get there. Essendon hasn't won a premiership in 25 years, Carlton's 30 years, St Kilda is 60 years, Melbourne took a long time to get there, 8 years to rebuild, Brisbane took 8 years, Fremantle's never won one. So with the Northern Academies only growing and more players coming through the NGA, we're seeing the explosion of it this year. This might not always be the case in terms of the numbers, but under this plan, and this is my draft plan, the bottom 4 clubs get another pick in the middle of the first round after the non-finalists have all had their first pick. So West Coast, under the ladder at the moment, will get pick 1 and then pick 11. Melbourne, who have the number 2 pick at the moment, would then get pick 12. Richmond at pick 3, pick 13. North Melbourne, who would have had pick 4 if they didn't trade it, would then get 14 under the current ladder. I think what we'd see then is these bottom clubs get a double dip at it. And look, the draft's that compromised anyway. What's another 4 picks?
Well, I wrote a couple of years ago that an idea for a compensation pick should be if you haven't made finals in 4 or 5 years, say 4 years, then you get that pick in the midsection of the first round. I wonder if you do that every year, you've got clubs like Collingwood who had the one dip, then instantly became a premiership contender a year later. Does it bolster them too much? Does it strengthen them too much where you have one down year and all of a sudden you can recharge the batteries and you shoot ahead?
Well, the idea is that you do recharge the batteries.
But did Collingwood need the recharge?
Collingwood don't, but the clubs who've been down the bottom for a long time do.
That's why I reckon there should be a factor within it. That's why it should be only if you haven't made finals for 4 consecutive years.
It's too long. It's way too long because these clubs are down the bottom forever. And there's no other way.
You just said Collingwood didn't need a recharge. They would have got a recharge.
The AFL is refusing to do pick purchasing God knows why. There's no other way that these clubs at the bottom of the ladder can get free agents other than doing what St Kilda's doing at the moment and paying an exorbitant amount of money. I think you need to be able to go to the draft and have a better draft handle, because at the moment it takes too long. And we're seeing this with West Coast as well. The future is so long without some extra draft hands. So that's my idea, Kaleidoscope. Interested in what everyone thinks about that one.
All right, get in touch with us on our Instagram page at Gettable for that one. All right, last week we were in Adelaide for all of the week for Gather Round. It was a fantastic week of footy over in South Australia. While we were over there, we caught up with one of the biggest player agents in the game, Ben Williams from Players Inc. Let's have a listen to that chat.
Towards the wing for Heaney! Answers off the left. Incredible! Tilthorpe's drop punt is good. Wanganeen-Milera off a step. That is perfect.
All right, we are thrilled to be joined this week by Ben Williams from Players Inc., one of the best player agents in the game. Ben, thanks for coming on Gettable again.
Riley, Cal, thank you for having me. No Star Wars music today?
No, we just thought we'd change up, be a little bit more down the line for some hard-hitting questions.
Hard-hitting questions. Let's do it.
All right, let's start with the big one.
Yep.
Zai Wanganeen-Milera, who is out of contract at the Saints, in demand by both South Australian clubs and I'm sure others as well. Where does it sit with his contract?
Where it sits at the moment, he's enjoying his football. They're obviously had a really good start to the season. Naz is going really well, but there's no finite timelines on it. He might ring me next week and say he's ready to do something. It might be a month after that. I don't know. He's just enjoying his football, and we'll know when we'll know.
Is he pretty settled in the way he's going about this year, given the spotlight and the attention that comes with being out of contract and a highly sought-after player? How's he finding that?
Yeah, he's unflappable, Naz, off-field and on-field. What you see on-field is how he holds himself off-field is very calm, very relaxed, and yeah, just goes about his footy and enjoys his life.
The Saints have been spending a couple of weeks in Adelaide over Gather Round. Ross Lyon, I heard say that he'd be disappointed if Naz didn't catch up with Adelaide and Port Adelaide while he was over here. Has he had the opportunity?
No, he hasn't caught up with anyone apart from family and friends, but I know he's enjoyed being back and enjoyed the weather and hopefully a good result for them.
You mentioned he was unflappable. I mean, his football this year has been fantastic in the way he's been able to help drive St Kilda's improvement through the first month of the season. I mean, how have you seen him from an on-field perspective this year?
I think he's just typical. You know what Naz is going to do every week. Every week he turns up, plays well, plays a similar sort of role, and obviously he's very offensive and enjoys that part of the game. And yeah, he's just himself on and off field.
We spoke earlier in the year about the offer that Adelaide has there for him. I've reported it anyway. I don't expect you to confirm that. But the pull home, is it real for him? How has he dealt with that across his time at St Kilda in his first 3 and a bit years?
Look, I think with every player when they're drafted into state, home is always home and always will be home.
Yeah.
But that being said, he is enjoying himself there and enjoying his teammates and his coaching staff. So that probably offsets a little bit of the homesickness that he might have had earlier on.
All right, we tried to bowl a few balls out. I don't think we're getting through the gate on Zai Wanganeen-Milera. Let's try on Kalachi. Out of contract as well, a premiership hero for the Lions last year in that grand final performance. Where does it sit in the contract talks with Kalachi, a premiership hero for the Lions last year?
Premiership hero. He was a very good player, wasn't he, Cal? What do you think he's worth?
As much as you ask.
Right answer, you should manage him. Yeah, no, catching up with Dom Ambrosio regularly, it's, talks are progressing well and not expecting that one to be too hard.
Obviously he's keen to stay, we imagine, given he's crossed to the Lions from the Gold Coast to begin his career.
Yeah, obviously he's got his wife Laura and 2 kids up there, and he's got a great support network off-field as well, so yeah, he's happy in Queensland.
What about Dane Rampy, another one of the Swans that you manage? I reckon this time last year you had Logan McDonald and Errol Goulden that we were grilling you about. Dane Rampy coming towards the end of his deal at the Swans. Does he want to play on into his career?
Yes, he does, but as you know, with the more senior guys, they traditionally happen more second half of the season, so the Swans have agreed to catch up in the mid-season break and start talks then.
The way his career's progressed, does he feel like he actually has a few more years in the way he can go?
He does. He's the Benjamin Button of football, isn't he? He just keeps going at a certain level at every stage, and I don't know if that's out of dumb luck or professionalism, or that he started in the system 2 or 3 years later than most players, but it's probably a combination of all the above. So yeah, he feels like he can keep performing at a certain level for a couple more years yet.
Interested to ask you about a couple of guys who are new faces at their clubs this year. One of them being Jack Lukosius. Started the year at Port Adelaide, had the knee injury. Some better news recent times that he'll be back sooner than expected. How's he going with that one?
He's going very well. Obviously you fear the worst when you see a player like that go down, and then you don't want to mention the 3 letters, but that's the first thing you think about. And then has the scan and they figure out it was obviously a little break in his patella. So they removed a little bone fragment there, and he has, they're really happy with how that's going. And as you say, they're expecting him to come back a bit earlier than they thought. But he's been good off field. Like literally 2 days after the injury, he'd ordered a puppy dog and it arrived. So he was hobbling around the house cleaning up after it. But it was a welcome distraction, I think, to not think about himself and the injury and prioritise others, which was prioritising his dog.
What about Sid Draper? Another one of those that are a fresh face at their new club, obviously drafted to Adelaide with the top 5 pick last year. How's he settled in at the Crows?
He's having the time of his life. He's living out his boyhood dream. He always wanted to be, drafted by the Crows, and he was lucky to be drafted by them. They've had a great start to the season, and they've been managing him nicely, managing his minutes and building into the season for him. So I think he's living his best life, really.
Another new Crow is Alex Neal-Bullen. Was that the easiest trade you've ever done? I think it was.
They normally end up in mediation or people yelling at each other and that. No, Alex was quite a simple one, and credit to Alex, really. He's earned the credits in the bank, and he's been such a good performer for Melbourne over the years, and they knew that his reasons were genuine to come home. So they honoured his wish, and before obviously going to the Demons, we made sure that there was something what we thought was quite fair. And the Crows and the Demons worked in goodwill and made that happen, so it was quite seamless, wasn't it?
Interested to ask you about a couple of the draftees you've got in your books this year, a couple of South Australian prospects, Matt Leray and also Sam Cumming. What can you tell viewers of the show who haven't watched too much of those two yet about their footy?
Matt Leray last year was the South Australian under-19 cricket captain, so he's actually hasn't had a football pre-season as yet, so you'll probably find that he'll be building into the year a lot like maybe a Sam Lawler did last year. But Matt is a very focused guy. He's about 190 centimetre midfield, equally proficient on both sides, skillful, can play on all lines, and a leader. Like as I said, captain South Australian under-19s, captain his school Prince Alfred College in cricket, and obviously in football as well. So yeah, he's enjoying his time now with the National Academy, and then after that we'll be focusing on state academy stuff.
And Sam?
Sam Cumming, yeah. Sam is actually from Mildura originally. He's also boarding at Prince Alfred College. He's at North Adelaide. He's a very powerful midfielder. Plays inside but can obviously play forward and take a mark as well. Models his game on Isaac Heaney, obviously a really good player. And that's good for Sam to follow someone like that.
And before we let you go, Naz, stay or go?
He's happy there at the moment, Cal. If I was a betting man, he'd probably be staying, but see how it all plays out.
All right, but actually there's one more thing before we go. Can we just grab that mug? Because
a mug for a mug.
You're a two-time guest. We gave you
two-time guest.
A Gettable shirt last year. This is your Gettable mug. So have that, take it home. We appreciate you coming on, and next year when we're back in Gather Round, we'll get you on again.
Would have been good if you washed it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Ben.
Big thanks to Benny Williams.
This one's clean.
Yeah, we've got our clean ones here. Sorry, Benny, for that. Nazai is going to be one of the most fascinating contracts, and I think that one will play out over the next 2-3 months still. Is he the best uncontracted player in the AFL at the moment, do you think?
Not quite. He still hasn't topped Marcus Bontempelli. There's still a few. I mean, Marcus Bontempelli is a weird one for me. Still no movement there. Find it all a bit strange as a club captain, maybe now that he's back playing. Chad Warner would be also up there.
Yep.
Nazai will be pushing that sort of realm. Still think he stays at the Swans, as you reported a few weeks ago. Matt Rowell would also be in the conversation, expecting him to stay, and there could be some movement on that in the next couple of weeks. And Ed Richards as well is probably up there as well. Staying, clubs know that he's staying, probably just working through those finer details, but it's a good list, and he's
very good
had
list.
an awesome start to the year.
While we were in Adelaide, the AFL Academy game was going on down here in Melbourne. Our man Cooper Duff Titler, I guess last week on Gettable, was playing in that, as were a number of other Jets. What did you take away from that one?
Well, they actually played pretty well and performed pretty strongly right to the end. Only lost by 13 points to Richmond's VFL side. Dan Askable was terrific as the captain. He was the best on ground, gun midfielder. Another one coming for the Lions. Be an interesting sort of work through how they get the points for him. But 22 disposals and 2 goals for him. He's a star. Archie Ludowick, the key forward, he kicked 3 goals from 12 disposals. I thought he was really good. It's a tough game, these ones, for the key position players. So they're playing against more experienced guys and they can get pushed around sometimes. But he wasn't. He presented and competed really well in a challenging role. So that was probably one of his better games to start the season. Kicked a haul of 5 a couple of weeks ago as well for the Sandringham Dragons. Ollie Greaves, 26 disposals for him as a midfielder through the midfield there. Kick 0-4. Usually he's an awesome kick, so just a little bit wayward around goal. There's so many similarities between him and Josh Smiley, not just the fact they wear the headband, Eastern Rangers and number 26, but yeah, there's a lot to like about his ball winning. It'd be interesting to see how he continues to progress his game this season, but certainly has started the season really well, and that was an excellent game too. Dylan Patterson was an eye-catcher. So Dylan is a member of the Gold Coast Academy. Got some real speed and tricks with the footy. Yeah, he's got a sidestep that makes people look silly. He did that a couple of times for the academy over the weekend.
Closing speed.
Yeah, and here's the sidestep. Oh, it's coming, I think. Next one. So, yeah, had some genuine speed and dash.
Bang.
Throughout this game.
Does it again.
And certainly bang. There it is. So the boy with the dancing feet, as Shifter says, he's got those. And then Bo Adensall, another member of the Gold Coast Academy, was really strong with 28 disposals, 5 inside 50s. Plays well most weeks, does Bo, and another player from that Gold Coast Academy batch. So this, of course, all without the leading Gold Coast Academy player in Neal-Bullen, who's still coming back from that back injury. So good performances. They'll play again in a couple of weeks for the AFL Academy.
All right, looking forward to that one. Let's get to one of our favourite segments now. It is Askable. Bang, there it is, Askable. That's where you can ask us your questions. We'll get to as many as we can each week on the show. Find us on Instagram at Gettable. That's where you can ask us. Angus wants to know, where will Zach Butters and Miles Bergman end up?
Well, they're different scenarios. Butters is contracted for next year. Bergman is out of contract this year. I thought Zach Butters spoke really well last week around the decision that's coming up for him over the next 18 months around his contract. Port's not going to sit back idle on either of them. They'll be aggressive and proactive to retain them both without putting the pressure on to do it straight away. I expect we'll see discussions around sort of shorter term deals and then the players having longer term options to go with them as well. Bergman is 2 years from free agency. Butters is 2 years from unrestricted free agency at the end of next year. So I think Port will get moving on these and be aggressive in trying to lock in both of these players for the short and longer term. I've spoken about the Josh Kelly type of deal a few times this year already, and I think that's going to come more back into vogue. He signed for 2 years and then had the player option of signing on for an extra 8 after that. So I think we'll see more of that, and that can come into play. Bergman, outside of South Australia, probably doesn't get the credit he deserves. I think as a player, he's a gun. And spoke to Ken Hinkley on our Your Coach series earlier this year, and he basically said that he's in the top 4 players at Port Adelaide now. So internally, Monday to Friday, a huge part of their future. And the other thing with these two is they're managed by the same company as well, a Capital Sports Group. So who manage about a quarter of Port's list. So I think when you have that sort of link with a company and these star players, you have a fair idea about value and what it all looks like. So I don't think Port Adelaide's going to sit on their hands.
All right, Seb wants to know, can the Pies bring in all of their father, son and NGA prospects? Because we know about Tom McGuan, and then Zach McCarthy and Jai Saxon are coming on as well.
Yeah, Jai Saxon, let's have a look at a little bit of his vision from the weekend. Kicked 5 goals. He's a draft bolter. He's come from the clouds, played some pretty good footy recently for Oakleigh Chargers, has an Indian background, and it was very, very lively in attack and clever around goal. Look at that one from nowhere. So he's going really well. Zach McCarthy could be a top 15 pick. They're going to have to do some work on getting some points. There's a lot of academy players in this opening round, so that does actually, in some ways, maybe push the points back in terms of what's required, because the first round's going to eke out. Like, look at the Bombers; they could walk out with 4 first-round picks, Essendon, with their first 2 picks, and then obviously with Hussein Al-Ashkar and Adam Swade as well. So a lot to come, and points hunting is going to be big business at the end of the year again.
First round could have pushed 40, Cal, do you reckon, by the end of it,
Who
maybe?
knows?
All right,
with my idea, it would.
Lucas wants to know, is Tom de Koning more likely to leave now?
It's heading towards that, isn't it? That's definitely the feeling. Carlton can salvage it, but at the moment, all the signs are heading towards leaving. My question would be what the Blues do after that. And do they get aggressive with the 1.1 that they've got in the Tom de Koning coffers?
Yeah, I think they would. They'd obviously need a ruckman, but I think they could start spreading that cash around as well.
Be a disaster to lose him, though.
Yeah, he's a very good player. I've got a different opinion on rucks and just what you should value them as, but good player. Luke wants to know, what will the Tigers do with their huge cash reserves?
They'll be in the market. They'll have a heap of cash. They'll be in the Harley Reid chase, of course, like everyone else probably. We spoke about Harley Reid last week and the offers that West Coast has put forward to him, but also what other clubs will be doing for that too. They'll hold 2 top 5 picks probably at the end of this year as well, but it's not a market at the moment with lots popping up. We did some numbers over the weekend of the top 8 teams. On average, 19 of the 23 players for the top 8 teams are contracted at the moment. So on average, only 4 players per team in the top 8 are out of contract, and a lot of them, to be honest, are unrestricted free agents at the back end of their careers. So we're seeing an own the asset landscape at the moment where clubs sign these guys up and then work out the rest later, because it gives them some leverage in trade discussions.
All right, Riley wants to know, can you fast track a rebuild plan for West Coast?
Yeah, let's do it. Here's our 8-point plan in very basic form. around how to get the Eagles back up and running. So attack pre-Tasmania drafts in 25 and 26. Go hard over this year and next before the Tasmanian Devils enter, which we think will be in 2027. Has 6 first-round draft picks between 2023 and 2026. So they've already got 1 from 23, 1 from 24, and they've got 2 for this year. So they're well on the way to doing that one. Make the Harley Reid call. So we wait and see what happens. Obviously, we reported around the offers that they've put there. That'll flush out whether he wants to stay long-term or not. They couldn't have done any more in terms of the offers they put forward.
Yeah.
It's not only a club record deal, it'd actually be an AFL record deal if he signs the longer term one. So that's one of the ones. Work out what Harley Reid is doing. Let Oscar Allen go. If it's going to net you pick 2 or 3, I think that's a good result for all parties. Wait for Chad Warner to hit free agency in 2 years so you don't hit your draft bounty and get him to free agency there. It's probably looking like that anyway. Bring WA talent home. That's clearly on the radar already.
Who else?
Use pre-season's draft. Use the pre-season draft. Get ruthless because don't give a sucker a chance. Don't give a sucker a chance. I think use the pre-season draft. If you're there, use it. And this is not going to make any other clubs happy, but ask for assistance package. I'm not saying that they necessarily deserve it after winning a premiership 7 years ago, but if the AFL leaves it open, then you've got to let your chance to clubs to put their hand up. So they have to do it a bit differently. If everyone's stuck in traffic, they have to take the plane.
They've got picks 1 and 14 as it stands. They could have pick 2 if Oscar Allen leaves. They could have more if Harley Reid wants to leave at the end of this year. They could have a lot of draft picks in this year's draft. Jack wants to know, what would Sam Darcy be worth on the open market?
3,
Did he sign too early?
2 million a season, probably.
He'd have to be, wouldn't he?
Yeah. The thing is, and let's notice the language change already in the last few weeks around these deals at the moment. We're getting very normalised around the 1.5 plus money, and it's happened very quickly. So there's Tom DeConey getting offered 1.7 a year at the Saints. There's Harley Reid, who we spoke about last week, being offered close to $2 million for the longer term options there, and before that 1.6 to 1.8. There's Wanganeen-Milera, who will get offers of 1.3 plus to leave and potentially to stay. LDU got 1.3 plus to stay at North Melbourne on a 7-year deal.
Chad Warner.
Nick Dacos, Chad Warner, they'll be in that 1.3, 1.4 territory next year. So the new money is here. And Sam Darcy, well, when he hits free agency a couple of years down the track, will be a beneficiary of that. But there's a fair chance that in the meantime, if he is going as he's going, they look at his deal anyway in between and say,
one of the best players in the game.
You deserve more. But no, he's a good player.
He certainly is. All right, before we go, just firstly, a big thanks to everyone who got in touch with us in Adelaide across the course of the last week. We had plenty of fans come down to our live show last Thursday at the Footy Festival in South Australia. Heaps of people stopped us on the streets, on the hill. We got stopped a lot of times at the Adelaide Oval. So thank you, everyone, for your support of the show. Big thanks again to Google for their support of the show as well. Inside Trading is on afl.com.au later this week, and we'll be back same time, same place next week for Gettable.